Hey everybody, welcome back. If you missed the first part of what this is basically just my behind the scenes tool that I use to combine everything I need on a show, whether it's messages and emails or storyboards or concept art or concept movies or estimates and invoices, breakdown, all kinds of stuff. And so that was the first part. The second part here, I just want to show you the rest of what this tool is. And if you may find this useful, I'd love to hear in the comments, and I would love to make this available for the public if there's any interest. So last time we talked a bit about the master shot list, which is obviously the big center point of this whole process here, especially with the work required, shot specific, and all kinds of good stuff like that. And we also talked a bit about the production breakdowns. Everything we see here is very shot specific. There's another section that talks about assets. And of course, assets are monetized over a number of different shots. So if you create either it's a matte painting or a model or texture or look dev or rigging or animation, whatever, animation shot specific, but rigging and modeling for assets, 2D or 3D illustrations, that all is separate assets that get factored into the budget here. And of course, that's monetized over a whole number of shots. And of course, the number of shots dictate how much love and work you put into those assets. You're not going to kill yourself on a model that's going to be in the background of one shot and be on the screen for 3 seconds, right? So the pre-production proposal is obviously what you're going to submit as a scope of work. Storyboards, obviously pretty self-explanatory. Now, all this stuff is nice because, again, it's all in one spot, and you could see whatever storyboards are posted, as well as the storyboard sequence that you're actually doing. And, you know, there's a cucumber montage, believe it or not, strange but true, for some of these things. And what's also nice is that since everybody can see it, then they can also just click here and just add client feedback notes to say, hey, I like this, I don't like that, save it, and everybody sees the notes right up here, which is kind of nice. So that's where all this basically gets stored. If you need a new group, you could just create a new group and do all kinds of stuff like that. Style guides, pretty self-explanatory, same thing with storyboards, concept images. What I like about this is because it's not a shared Google Drive or, you know, you're trying to assign people different access to different things and you know, you could click on these things to make it a little bit bigger and analyze and view and of course leave feedback and stuff like that. It's just really nice to kind of put all in one spot. And since this is all in pre-production for concept images, it's also where put, you know, some of the concept character designs. We hired some amazing illustrators to work on caricatures of Beau Bridges and Jeff Bridges. And I just love going through these things and seeing the incredible work and the incredible artistry that we had some of these people on our teams. Just fantastic work on there. For this movie, there was actually going to be a pretty large component of 2D animation, which turned into a 3D animation. But we also, you know, I personally took a crack at my first time of doing some production design. And so we worked on what does the actual 1930s set look like for this character that lives in New York, and he's kind of an eccentric acting teacher. So all these were basically just put down as well, orthographic views of certain things. It's just real nice to kind of put everything all in one spot, which was kind of nice. Concept movies, same thing. And then reference art and photos. This isn't something that we create. This is something that very often we get a lot of from external sources or the director or producers. And what they often do is they, you know, whether we find assets and imageries that we're using to base our work off of, or they find stuff and they want to use it in the film, like inspirational art from Emily, the director, clicking on that. They sent us all these things and say, hey, this is all just wonderful stuff that I would like to kind of fuse into the movie. So this is a great place to kind of store all this stuff and then see it a little bit bigger and say, hey, what were you thinking on this? Stage sketches, you know, even little simple napkin sketches that somebody says, hey, what about this? You know, Gibson Girl, who Richard Boleslavsky, I should say, the author of the book. And, you know, if there's a part on Hamlet, if there's a part on simply just creating some work for the environment of the Empire State Building, Empire State Observation Deck, it's just nice to kind of put all that in the same spot. In the production side, the production schedule, it's just your typical Gantt chart that we like to have all in one spot. Master shot lists we've seen. The 3D asset list is nice because, again, a lot of this stuff is meant for internal artists to look at and to see. And, you know, we'll just assign numbers for every single asset. Like, say, this one here of a ZBrush sculpt of Jeff's head caricature. It's 3D A2, and just we put some notes on it. You could see exactly where it is, where it appears on the storyboard, whether it's delivered, what the status is, all kinds of good stuff like that. But it's nice to kind of go through all this stuff and say, hey, is this done? Where does this reside? And the same thing would go, obviously, for the 2D asset list and 2D artwork, which would more often than not be paintings, matte paintings, stuff like that. Additional expenses is kind of a big one because, you know, if you're trying to create things and you have additional expenses come up, you really hate to surprise people at the end of the day and say, hey, I need an extra X amount of dollars. This keeps track of everything. If I had to go and buy something, you know, obviously I'm going to get approval for it from the production team, but I'm going to go to it and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to need this specific thing. And they could just jump right here and say, oh, okay, here is the license that we have to use this with. You know, this is the invoice in case somebody wants to take a look at the invoice of whatever it is as well. So all of that is right there, and that's really kind of useful for the people that balance the books at the end of the day. Tools and code is just some of the Python things that we write. If somebody writes something for, you know, using Nuke or using some Python, you know, tool somebody writes for Maya or whatever, we just store it right in here, so everything is accessible right there. FTP server is simply, you know, where the editor or where other people can just jump on, and, you know, we handle all the credentials right here so people don't have to send shared drives around and things like that. The on-set data is a little thing that I use all the time on set, and what this actually is right over here, I'm recording the stuff that we need so I can dictate, you know, what the camera is going to do in post-production. So, for example, this very first one right here, maybe we were starting with scene 14. It tells you the shot, and I'll just open this up, the shot, and it's just pulled down of whatever shot that they're actually using, whether I've taken HDRI photos or not on set of that. And then for every shot, I have up to 3 cameras that I'm recording, camera A, B, and C. And I'm recording exactly what the millimeter of the lens is, the height from the ground to the actual point on the camera, and then the tilt of the camera. And this really helps quite a bit when you're doing match moving and tracking and stuff like that. And then, of course, if there's any notes that say, hey, we're going to start over the shoulder, like this says, with a view of a pond, we're going through tree branches, you know, pull back this version on that, etc. Whatever the case may be, it's a nice place to throw down notes. So all of this stuff right here, here's another one, 30 alpha. It's got 2 cameras in it. Drift this shot up during the final spoken lines by Bo in the comp, and that's just a nice place to just get some quick notes while I'm right here on set. So every time I'm on set and I'm recording this stuff, I'm jumping right in here and I'm going to say, okay, boom, here's the stuff I need to grab, here's the stuff I need to put in there, and it's all recorded for me, which is kind of nice. Screen replacements are pretty useful if you're ever shooting something and you need it to be, you know, you're showing a TV or you're showing some monitors or something. And just jumping into this, it's just some extra tools that just give you full screen so people aren't trying to find like a green image or something on an iPhone or a monitor or something like that. It's just all right here, green, blue, red, whites. You just click it and boom, that's all you get. You get, you know, this full screen kind of element here, and just double tap escape to go back out. Or even a checkerboard if you want to do some of that. And then there's trackers on here, and this part is actually kind of nice because if I just click blue trackers, this is it's scrollable. So if someone's on an iPhone or a touch screen or something, they can just scroll up and down and the trackers will move. And now you're not trying to figure out how fast should this screen move inside this scrolling element. You just have the trackers right here to kind of figure it out for you. So that's just little onset tools that I have at my disposal that somebody could just jump over. And then, of course, render progress. When you're rendering a lot of frames, maybe you're using whatever software you're using, Backburner or whatever the case may be. Maybe you roll your own, you write your own code. For render progress, this shows me exactly how far on the job for every shot I am and rendered. And you could see This isn't the full duration. Everything doesn't go to the end right here. You could just say, okay, shot 265 has 531 frames. And then you'll see maybe down here, I left some that were unfinished so you could see the difference. And you can know exactly where everybody is, what it's doing. And what's also kind of nice is, you could just change whatever it is. In another version of this I created, I actually also specify what nodes are running on what servers are running on what, just in case you want to compare or kind of line them up that way. And it gives you just the right information you need so you could see where the renders are basically for everything on the movie. The discussions right here is what we call CYA, right? Cover your ass in the industry. And what this is, emails are flying left and right all over the place. What I like about this is all you have to do is take an email and email it right to this system. This system will see the email. It'll break out, scrape whoever's in it, the subject, the attachments, and it puts it right in these topics right over here. So we can see right over here that say, hey, whatever that thread was, VFX animated notes on animated segments or archival access as a storyboards, everything is listed right in here as well as the attachments that somebody's talking about. So everybody has access basically to everything all at the same time, and nobody's saying, hey, what did you say about that? Or what did you say about this? It's like, no, it's all right here. Been thinking about this and that and the other. I could click on something. It just shows me what it is, and everyone's on the same page. But you don't want to put all the stuff in by hand, so you just email the system, and it just takes the subject line and it breaks it down into these things, and you're basically good to go on all of that, which is kind of a nice way to kind of handle tons of emails that just kind of go through. And usually this is where I would actually start. The first, time somebody logs in, they jump to this section right here so they could see, is there anything going on here that I need to know? Or maybe you can, and this system will email you as well. If somebody mentions you in a post or a thread, it also goes right to your email, so you don't have to always jump on here to see what's being talked about, stuff like that. And then you could add new topics and attach members. And if you add a new topic and say, hey, I'm thinking about this allows you to email everybody in the group, everything like that. So it's kind of a nice way to handle that. Documents and statement of work. This is really for the people who are making sure that everything is on time and we're not doing what we call scope creep, where you're doing something and it just keeps going and going and going. Statement of work is really a big thing because in visual effects, it's really specific to say, hey, these are my deliverables, and I'm going to deliver you the rendered frames only of these shots, and everything is written right out so you know exactly what the responsibilities are, client responsibilities, fees, maintenance, that kind of a thing, project change control procedures. It's a lot of fine print, PCRs, project change requests and stuff. But again, this is something that you really are going to be glad to have, if something pops up and someone says, well, wait a minute, where's the other 30 shots that we decided? And you can go back here and say, well, that's not in the shot list here that we talked about. And you signed it over here. You signed the document. We all agreed to it. Here's the PDFs of it. And then it gets an encryption ID token on it and all kinds of good stuff like that. It talks to you about the period of performance, when you're actually going to get the projects and when it's all due. It's just a good way to CYA. Project change request. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, nobody's going to want to fill this out because they don't really like to track changes so much as that I've seen, and they definitely don't want to be charged for changes. So this is where you can actually write down and say, hey, everything here is a project change request, and it's all right here in black and white, and you really can't argue with it. So if a new request comes up and somebody says, hey, I didn't realize that we need to remove all the no smoking signs on this location because it wasn't, period specific. And then you could say right here, was it agreed to? Clicking on it, what it's required. And someone says, yeah, I agreed to this. They click on it, boom, blah, blah, blah. And then it's right there. And it says, hey, it was digitally signed by clicking on this with the timestamp, the encryption token, everything is right there. So then when there's an overage, and nobody likes to talk about overages, but it's good to record them all, you go back and you say, hey, remember this that you actually changed and you wanted to sign off on it? Well, it costs extra, and here's the days of impact, and here's the cost impact. So if a project goes over 3 or 5 days or a week, you could just go right to the PCR and say, well, check it out. We have 7 days of impact that you signed off for. So obviously that's going to change the initial contract. And that's why I like to have all this stuff all in one place. And of course, estimates and invoices, you have to obviously sign in extra layers of security because artists are on this and producers are on this and directors are on this or whoever. Not everybody needs to see all the numbers on anything. So for every person that's actually joined into this system has customized layers of security and viewability of what they can see and what they don't really need to see. The most common things, preferences, account information, the email settings. Like I said, this system will email you anything that you want to and kind of customize that. If you want to be up to date on absolutely everything, it emails you anything that's uploaded or changed or talked about, you get an email version of it. Or maybe you just want all discussions and topics plus replies or stuff that I've responded to. Or don't give me anything. And it tells you all that right there so that's you're not getting spammed and stuff like that. The portal guide under the help section here is really just a guide for the whole thing. 6 easy steps we've already talked about. The breakdown versus script production we've already talked about, stuff like that. And then glossary of terms is pretty important too because you're dealing with a lot of people that don't understand, if you just say something like look dev or you say something like who knows what. Nobody wants to feel silly. And so they may just say, hey, what are we talking about here when we're talking about image-based modeling or something? You could just go look it up. And that's just a nice thing to kind of give to everybody on the team. So somebody could just go through and say, they're talking a lot about this. I don't have to go look for it. Everything is right here. And then contact the team real quick just to finish up. Private messages to whoever you want to talk to so everything doesn't show up in the discussions. I have a to-do list right here that I click. And this is basically on any of this stuff, I could just say, here's a new to-do thing that I have to put in, and it tells me the priority, and I could just click on it, or I need information on it, or it's a work in progress, or it's done, or whatever the case may be. That's just my personal thing. That's just how instead of writing everything down on like little pieces of paper, I just go to my my to-do list. And what's nice about that is at the end of the to-do list, if I jump down over to that again, I could just say, hey, generate the to-do list summary, and it just throws it all into your chat program of choice. Right now, mine just kicks it all out to Slack, to the proper channel of anyone on the team, so everybody knows exactly what I'm working on, and there's no confusion to say, hey, what did you finish? What did you work on today? What did you finish? What are you working on tomorrow? Basically it in a nutshell. I hope you kind of liked my, behind the scenes of what I do here at Inferno Visual Effects as far as organizing an independent film. And again, this is meant for, one person can control all of this, which is nice. Producers might find this perhaps a nice change of pace, or maybe it's clean and they appreciate that. And I'm always adding new features all the time, and I'll probably add different color schemes and stuff like that. So again, if you're interested and you like what this is and you find it something that maybe you can try out, I'm happy to start making this available to the public if I find that there's people who want it. I hope you enjoyed my behind the scenes tour here, and I promise I'm going to get back to more maybe VFX software tips, tricks, and tutorials in my next campfire. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao.